Hey kids, this is our last story in our campfire series, and it's about a big boat and a guy named Noah. And we're going to see how even when other people were not obeying God, Noah still chose to obey him even in a really difficult time. Hope you enjoy.
Down, a little worried when I look around. That's why my hope is in the Lord. I fix my eyes upon the God who gives, 'cause all I need is what I have in Him. That's why my hope is in the Lord. My hope is in the Lord, I belong to Him, He will never let me go. My hope is in the Lord, I can count on Him. My hope is in the down, a little worried when I look around. That's why my hope is in the Lord. I fix my eyes upon the God who gives, 'cause all I need is what I have in Him. That's why my hope is in the Lord. My hope is in the Lord, I belong to Him, He will never let me go. My hope is in the Lord, I can count on Him. My hope is in the Lord. My hope is in the Lord, I belong to Him, He will never let me go. My hope is in the Lord, I can count on Him. My hope is in the Lord.
Good morning, Galilee. I'm Jedediah,
And I'm Yedidiah.
and we're here to
And
bring
I'm
you...
Bob.
That's right, that's Bob, and we're here to bring you the news on Channel 7, the Galilean Gazette. The holiest news you'll find on your tablet. Well, guys, I was out last week, and all of you who were able to see our broadcast from that week, guys, every time somebody's not in studio, ask around. Maybe somebody went on vacation or they had a business trip.
That was Bob's idea. Had nothing to do
What?
with it.
We don't have to create a hotline
No,
every time
you-
somebody goes away. That's my
You
point.
wanted the hotline.
You wanted the hotline.
No, I wouldn't have said that.
Okay, well, guys, regardless, I was just at a business convention. I talked about it all last week. It was posted on the company bulletin board. Ask around. Don't just assume we need to create hotlines. People get panicked over this. Goodness, right? Well, guys, for this week's story,
I have some really important stuff for this week's story. I got a raincoat, an umbrella, some boots,
Well,
measuring stick.
oh, yeah,
Well-
I was holding on to that.
Well, you do realize that we're actually just going to be talking about the story. You're not actually in the story, so you won't actually probably need all that
That's-
stuff.
That's such a downer.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, it is good to come prepared, Bob, but unfortunately, I don't think they had any of that gear or anything like that back
That's a
then.
good point.
But this actually reminds me, this is our last week here as we finish up our stories of the most amazing stories in the Bible.
That's right.
That's really That's really disappointing, guys. I'm gonna miss being out here.
Bob, just keep in mind, this isn't our last broadcast. This is just our last week or last day here, out in the outdoors. Next week, we'll be back in the studio and we'll continue doing these stories and things like that.
I do miss the studio. I hate fighting stupid bugs.
I know. And kids, again, this is our last story for our campfire series. We'll be back in studio next week. So to wrap up our campfire stories and the most amazing stories in the Bible, if you couldn't guess already by our little setup here, we're going to be talking about Noah and the ark. And really how Noah listened to God, he obeyed God even when he was in a troubling time, even when times were rough. And when it seemed like nobody else would listen and nobody else cared to what God was telling the people, Noah still went through with it. And that's the story we're going to dive into. And we're actually going to do a special story time with Barbara, as we know all you kids love. We're going to send it right over to her, and let's get the story started.
Hi everyone. Thanks for joining me for story time with Barbara. I have a special friend here today. This is Perry the parrot. He's going to be joining us for this great story. As we're continuing in the amazing stories of the Bible, this is a great one that teaches us about how even though we're called to obey God when other people don't want to, it's hard to do sometimes. But our story today is Noah's Ark. It's out of Genesis. Actually, it's found in Genesis 6:9 through 17. Let's get started. So this story of Noah happens after Adam and Eve. There were a lot of people born, and over time, it became very corrupt, and it was filled with violence. They forgot all about God, and they were being very disobedient.
That's my bag.
That's not your bag. That's my bag.
That's my basket.
No, it's my bag.
These are mine. You know
this
what?
is mine.
You want to go? That's mine. Please. What the? What the?
Except for Noah. Noah loved the Lord. He was different. He listened to God. He was faithful to him. He and his family grew up loving the Lord and following him. So here begins our story of Noah's Ark and his family. God saw how corrupt and violent they had become. Because of their evil ways, God made a decision to destroy the earth, except for Noah and his family, and 2 of each animals.
I am about to cover the earth with a flood. Make yourself an ark, and here are the directions.
Thanks, God.
Follow everything as I have said. I will make a covenant with you and your family. You will enter the ark with your family and 2 of every animal.
Noah and his family began building the ark exactly the way God had told him to. And suddenly, animals started showing up 2 by 2. It was so crazy. When the ark was done, God said, "Take your family and 2 of every animal onto the ark." Once they were all inside, God shut the door. And the rain began to fall and fall and fall. And the water rose up, and the ark rose up, and it rocked this way, and it rocked this way. As the waters began to rise, the boat floated along safely. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. The flood waters grew deeper and higher. The flood water covered the earth for 150 days. Wow, I can't believe it. Oh, wait sorry guys, hold on a second. What's that? Oh my. We're heading over to Shelly Grace actually. She somehow got herself onto the ark. She's interviewing Noah. So I'm going to turn it over to her. I'll see you in a little bit.
Hi, this is Shelly Grace reporting live to you from Noah's Ark. Now, I got on this ark this morning when I hid beside an elephant. Now, let me tell you, you do not want to ever hide behind an elephant, if you know what I mean. Anyways, I am here on the upper deck and I came to interview our good friend Noah. I just have a few questions for you. Is it okay if I interview you? I know it's okay if I interview you. And the first question I have for you is this. How do you take care of all of these animals on the boat?
Well,
I will tell you how you take care of all these animals on the boat. It's just like when you have a dog or a cat at home, but on a much, much, much bigger scale. And let me tell you, he has had, like, given a special brain from God or something to take care of all these animals because they all have such different needs. Now, my next question I have for you is, how big is this ark? I will tell you how big this ark is. It is like a football field and a half. So the next time you're ever at a football game, you can like look at it and say, oh my goodness, that was such a big ark. And it's as tall as like 9 or 10 men stacked on top of each other. And it's super wide. It's just so big in here. It's just crazy. So my last question for you is, how do I get out of this boat?
well, you may not like it, but here you go.
Oh, well, I guess I gotta float home.
Another great interview with Shelly Grace, huh? Let's continue with our story of Noah. So, I hope Shelly can get off of that ark okay, though. It's crazy she was on there. So finally, the rain came to a stop. The ark and the animals and everyone was safe. They were happy and they celebrated. God remembered Noah and the ark. And God sent a wind and the water began to recede. Now please know that no animals were harmed during the filming of our video. It's important that you know that. One day, Noah took a dove and set him out. He flew and flew and flew around, but he came back because there was no dry land yet. He waited another week. Noah sent another one out. This time, he returned with an olive branch. We waited another week. He sent the dove out again, and this time the dove did not return. So we know what that means. He found a place to stay. The ark rested on top of a mountain. And God said, "Leave the ark, Noah, you and your family and the animals." And they praised God. God sent a beautiful rainbow as a promise to us to never, ever destroy the earth again. They built an altar to him and they worshiped God. He and his family celebrated and they cheered. They were so happy to be on dry land and that they were spared. So this is a good example, kids, of a story when we are called to obey God, even when no one else does. Thanks for joining me for story time. Thanks for having Perry. See you next time.
Wow, guys, that was a really good story today.
Absolutely. And I love this little Noah's Ark that we have with the animals. And did you put Noah? Did you find Noah and put him on here?
Oh yeah. So
where's he at?
I was able to find him. This little guy right here.
This is your Noah character.
I identified him specifically because of the stash.
Because of the stash.
I never knew Noah had a stash.
Well, he does.
All right. Well, guys. Anyway, talking about all these animals. Think about all the animals on the ark. How big the ark was. Like they said, like a football field and a half. Putting all these animals on there, 2 of each. Speaking of, guys, what's your favorite animal?
Well, I think the best animal is definitely a kangaroo.
Kangaroo.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite animal?
Clearly, it's the lion.
The lion.
Your lion would never be able to catch my kangaroo.
Oh, I have some serious doubts on that.
My kangaroo would just jump right over your lion.
I could jump so high being a lion.
Not higher than my kangaroo.
My lion.
All right, guys. We got to wrap this up. We can talk about this all day, and you'll probably talk about this later. But kids, remember, in our story that we talked about, in the world that Noah was in, nobody wanted to listen to God. Nobody wanted to hear what he had to say or to follow his direction. But Noah listened and obeyed God. And maybe if we think in our own lives, right, wherever we go, whether it's in our schools or with our friends or out in the world, wherever we go, there may be people who don't want to listen to God or don't follow God. But even in those circumstances, even if nobody else around us in that time or in that moment is listening or believes in God, we are still called to obey God, to follow his command for us, and to love him and be in relationship with him. I think that's something we can all take away from the story. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
All right, guys, that'll do it for another broadcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. And kids, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Wow, that was incredible just to see how Noah continued to obey God even though it hadn't rained for so long, and yet he decided to listen to what God had to say and built the ark and then remained faithful to him even when all the other people were not listening to what God had to say. He still remained faithful to what God said. So this is our last story in our campfire series, so we'll see you next week with a whole new series.
Hi kids, welcome to Craft Time with Miss Shelley. Now this week we are doing Noah's and the Ark, and let me tell you, there's a lot of fun activity sheets that you can do with your family. So you have all these choices. You have just a simple little coloring sheet, or this one will be in your email and you can put it together for a book. Last one is which one is my favorite, is this cool rainbow. And you color it and follow the directions, and then you can pull out the cloud and make a rainbow for Noah. I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks.